Yes.
Brenda,
Yes.
David,
Yes.
Margot,
Abstain.
Jason,
Abstain.
Priscilla.
Yes.
Minutes are approved. So we're gonna move to finance update on 6A.
Okay. Oh, sorry. I was actually in school.
Just keep you on your toes, you do know that.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is a preliminary end of the year financial report. And again, this kind of goes to what you've seen with the other reports, which has an object sheet in the front and gives you a comparison as we start to build next year's budget. So for this report, we're dealing with fiscal year 22 actual expenditures on the column over on the left side. And the function page is the next page, which gives you, kind of your expenditures by function. And again, it gives you some sense of comparing the middle column, which, is next year's budget, and how we look like we may have to have some fill-in and gap money. And it just gives you a sense of how we compare. Any questions on the, and again, I will say this is the unaudited. There could be some changes. But what I did was I looked at e-finance, and I think that we're by and large okay, because if I look at e-finance's number, the 7,076,000, I compare it to what next year's budget is. It gives you some sense. I mean, at least we're in the ballpark. Now, I hope that the e-finance is correct. The third page in is the revenue sheet, and I just wanted to. So the revenue sheet breaks down the property taxes that were paid, and for this past year was $4,117,072. Now, other revenues, and I'm sorry, but I don't know what the other revenues are. I can assume that it's tuition, but I don't know that. But it was $16,079 of other revenue sources that were offsetting the budget. Now, the state of Vermont has educational grant money that comes out of the education fund. And the only thing that I would point out to you is that the top education amount, the $254,000, now they call that on behalf payment. And where this gets confusing, and I say this even for some finance people, it gets confusing because that 254 has to be put in as an expenditure when you're building your budget and as a revenue, because ultimately this 254 goes over to Springfield and to the other place that we send our kids. Now, sometimes where people get confused is they forget to separate that. But it has to be, because our net for the educational grant money is $2,861,430, and that's what reduces with the overall budget, and that's done the formula is the base ed amount at 87%. And so for how many kids we have, and I think I looked at it and but I think it was 300 and some odd kids.
Yeah.
Not
115.
Yeah.
so anyways, that's how it's straight math multiplication, and that plugs out. So the bottom line for revenues, 7,232,000 against what we believe is the expenditure side of 7,076,000. So it leaves you with a maybe net of 156,000. Now, I will say this, I wish we had more, because I think in this year's budget, the shortfalls will certainly impact your unreserved fund balance. Because, oil alone, I think we're gonna be, twice what we put in.
I'm concerned about the teacher salary line item. The actual for 2022 is 2218.567. And what our adopted budget is for next year is 2175046. And we're still hiring people, correct?
The high school?
We have a grounds man I just heard about. And I'm restorative and math and
But
They're
those
not.
were still in the budget already, weren't they?
Yeah,
They
they
were
were-
they were
they were in
budgeted
the
for.
budget,
Yeah. So
They
some of
were-
them, some
well,
of
the
them,
restorative wasn't.
that's being used through grant funds. that
Okay.
position.
How long does that grant fund run for?
Uh, This year and next year, right now.
What happens to that position when that grant money runs out?
There'll have to be a decision whether to, once we look at the data, is it worthwhile of trying to maintain it and continue it on through local, or so you to look for other grants, or to,
Didn't we have a restorative practice person that,
we had a district level person, yes,
so now we have one just for the school?
yes.
So John has a listing of personnel. And again, we're gonna go through, and because as I'm trying to build a database, I just want to see where we're gonna be for 24. And that, right now with the data, I mean, it looks like we got 2,285,000 needed. Now, I don't know, I mean, I've got open positions that are in there. I just want to double check, because I may be off. So. See,
Molly, I have a question. Jim, we're on this page,
yes, revenue, that's the
So-
revenue page.
where it says Rockingham 61.8, is that the share that Rockingham pays in the taxes?
Yeah, it's the share, I believe, because this totals up to 100%.
Right.
I believe that, and I hope I'm right, but I believe that that's based on students. So I think however the students divide up, I think that percentage is direct from that.
Makes sense. So I just wanted to make sure that Rockingham pays more than everyone else, but they have more students come to the school.
Yeah.
They're typically around 60% of our total population.
So with that, do you know how many are single family homeowners or rentals out of that 61%? Is there a way to figure that out?
It would, I'm hoping that, that the town office would have some handle on that. I don't even think, if I call the agency of ed, that they'd have a clue. But I'm hoping that the town certainly would.
I researched it back in 2008. In 2008, 60% of Rockingham was rental at that time. And that's 14 years ago. So and then you have to, there's a usage, so the single family homeowner theoretically is paying more than if you're in an apartment. Now, I know there's a percentage that goes to the rent, but how much is that landlord paying compared to the single family
Yeah.
homeowner? Which I can tell you, it's not fair.
Oh, I know. I do. But, you know, and I think the state tries to massage that a little bit with the state grant money. And this year, I believe, as you go forward in setting for this year, and I don't know when they've set it, but the yields this year that the state was using for property taxes really, I mean, and this is only a one-time pass, but was substantial in that it dropped most projections way down. So-
I brought my taxes with me last year and this year, and mine went down $60 between the education and the town. And I know that we have a surplus. I mean, this year we had it says 156,589. So my question for you would be, do you happen to know yet how much we've earmarked down the road for like rainy day funds? Do you have that number by chance? I know we had it 6 or 8 months ago, but could you look that up? I mean, could you have that for
Yeah.
next meeting maybe?
Yeah, this is for what is going to be paid in August.
Yeah, my taxes, my personal taxes went down $60
Yeah,
year over year. And that seems like we saved a lot of money last year and this year. It doesn't seem like I'm getting a bang for my buck, so to speak.
yeah, I'm surprised that it didn't go down more, just with the yields. I mean, everything equal, the yields that were put out for both homestead and income. I mean, I think the state was wrong in doing it, but they jammed a lot of millions of dollars into the yield.
Question on that 60 per quarter, Jason,
No,
or 60 total
60 total.
for the whole year?
Yep. Even I could do that math pretty simple.
Yeah, I'm just, sometimes we look at it and you think, oh, you don't take the fact that you pay it in quarters, so that's why I was
I'm not paying
asking.
that a quarter. That's a lot of money.
I was hoping
I'm
you
moving to New
were
Hampshire,
going
that's the
down
case.
60 per quarter.
Sorry, Nate.
Your taxes will go up, that's all I'll tell you.
Julie, you had your hand up.
I was just leading off of one of the back to school forms of the millions that we fill out. It says, do you rent, do you own? I mean, it would take a little bit of data entry, but something could be done with that
Yeah.
to tell us if.
I understand where Jason's coming from, but I don't really think that it has a lot to do with what Jim's trying to do for us. I mean, he's trying to show us
Yeah.
what our budget's gonna be and, you know, where we are and, you know.
And I hope to tie it into a tax projection for you as well, so that you're not only looking at dollar amounts, you're looking at the tax
Right.
per $1,000 of property.
For me, I'm looking at it as, I want, as a taxpayer and as a human, I want to do what's right for all the kids, but at a certain point, a dollar is a dollar, no matter how you cut it, and it takes a lot of effort to earn one single dollar. It's not free, nothing's free.
No.
So I just want to, make sure that when we add things to the school or more salaries or whatever, the taxpayers know exactly how much they're paying for. And that's really important for me because, we have an aging town, so
Yep.
at some point, we can't, the cup's gonna be too full. It's gonna overflow.
And when you say aging town, you're talking the age of the people
Yeah.
here. And I just will say this because I think you're gonna find in Vermont, I think that's usual and normal. And I don't know where the state of Vermont goes with that, but can you imagine 15 years from now? I mean, and I do think
It's scary.
we as a town have to pay attention. We as a state have to pay attention. And yes, it is scary.
Thank you.
I agree.
An observation and question. First off, I want to know what the percentage of multifamily housing is compared to single family housing. Your listers will know. Everybody Mike's staff. Secondly, it's one of the things that I think that we need to bear in mind, not necessarily at this table, but in many, many towns in Wyndham County, the commercial rate is actually lower than the homestead rate. I don't know what it is in Rockingham, but if you're out of joint
Yes.
in that manner in this town, well, actually your town, we're in Westminster right now, my town, then that's something you need to address with the listers.
I know he said he was working on it. He's the one position too, and he's doing a good job. So hopefully we'll get there.
Any other questions or?
June, you
concerns?
had a question about warrants. I think now is a good time to ask that question because Jim's gonna be right here to help us answer it.
Oh, okay. So I was called in, as you know, last week or a couple weeks ago to sign. And I was under the impression that the checks had already been sent because because of the difficulty getting someone in there to sign the checks.
Yeah.
My question is, what if there was a bill on there that I wanted to reject, but is this normal practice? I
Yes.
mean,
Yes, it is.
to
Any-
send out the checks before?
Oh, no, excuse me. I thought.
Sorry, Jim, you were right the first time.
The warrant always by law has to be signed. Now, the board can say one signature, two signatures, or everyone. But that warrant has to be signed before we release one check. So, and I thought you were saying that if you wanted to hold back a check, we certainly can do that. And anytime the signers go through and say, I'm not comfortable with that, I need more information, we can do that.
Okay,
Not a
because
problem.
there was one, like, I'm gonna use this as a good example, sorry, Molly. There was one there for Curtis Reed, which was, he charged us $310 for a forced apology from Molly for a misunderstanding on his part, and he charged us $310 for it. I would have definitely refused that had the checks not gone out yet. Because that is just ridiculous. He's the one that wanted the apology, and so for him to charge $310 for less than half an hour, I would have definitely denied that check be sent.
Yeah, and that's what it's about.
When was that sent?
2 weeks ago, I went in and signed because Marlene had begged people to come in and sign so she could get them out. And so I had gone in, and that's when it was on the warrant, was then.
And we've kind of established that as of July 1, this includes any check released, it has to have the signatures. And again, I just, it's the way that school districts do business. So, and I'm sorry that one got away.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm
I don't know
used
what
to,
happened.
I'm used to the fire department, the prudential committee signs the warrant,
Yep.
approves the bills, then I send it to the treasurer,
Yes.
and then they send out the checks. So in that case, it would have been, if the prudential committee said, no, we're not paying this, it wouldn't have never been on the warrant. So I was just curious how the school worked.
I will follow up with it.
Deb, I see your hand, but I just got one thing, because, so I used to be the one to sign warrants, and when June asked me about this, I've tried to stay away from it the last few years, but it was when they were still on Cherry Hill, And they used to have the office open at 6 o'clock in the morning on Friday morning, so I could go in there and sign before I went to work in the morning because they had to have a signature before they could write that check. And, I think that, before Jim, that wasn't happening because I went in the office for something else and there was a table full of warrants to be signed and, we've got to do a better job at that. So there's another item on our agenda about that, but I just wanted, if Jim was going to help us answer any questions on that, that's why I had June ask her a question about that now. Deb, you're next. Deb, right? All right, Priscilla, go ahead.
We just had the rule of just one signer, am I correct? And Deb and Jason were the ones approved in March.
That is correct.
Okay. And so it just had.
But I thought it was supposed to be 2 signers.
I thought
it's
the high
always
school
been
just
2.
had to have one.
Well, it's always been, they've always looked for 2 signatures.
Yeah, but when we did the appointment, Molly, I may be wrong, but that's why we ended up with only 2 this year, because the previous year we'd had 3. And we only did 2 because we said we only needed 1 this year.
Okay, well, we'll look into that. I'm not gonna.
You're not
act like
supposed
that.
to
Thank you.
appoint an alternate.
Pardon?
You're not supposed to appoint an alternate.
Right.
What happens is if these 2 are the signatures and they can't make it, they're supposed to notify the board, then elect someone to go in as an alternate for that one time. That's how it's supposed to happen, because you're not supposed to be like what Marlene has been doing. Throwing up a white flag, just saying, please, someone come in and sign.
She was very appreciative when
And it's a bad practice got started, probably pre-COVID. COVID exacerbated it.
Well, let's get it straightened out tonight.
Fully supported with Jim. With what he
Andy?
wants to do.
I gotta ask, is it in statute? Is it in statute?
About,
If this board elects to appoint 2 signers, one of those signers is not available, does this board need to come back and meet in order to designate this for the signer? Is that in statute?
I would have to look that up.
Okay, well, I think we want to be very, very careful about these hard and fast rules without knowing what the law says about them. As you are well aware and have been around this table for a very, very long time, and it has been practiced, maybe it's not legal, it's been practiced for at least 30 years, that if a board designates specific signers, one of those signers is not available, Marlene's staff, or Marlene Lange calls up and finds someone from that board and has them sign. And I just, I think that's a real consideration here. And one of the things we got right during COVID is we were allowed to sign those warrants electronically. I think that certainly would allow for a situation, if in fact the statute requires the designated signers to be the only signers, that would certainly make a tough situation a lot easier for someone who's on Old Orchard Beach if they're the signer. So let's find out about it. Let's get it straight.
I will look into that, David. I will tell you that the electronic signatures were not happening. And board members were not signing electronic signatures. And there were literally mountains of warrants that had gone unsigned.
I'm a guilty party.
And I physically brought them to board meetings to get them signed because we begged, we pleaded for board members to come in. And it's more than just this board, it is all of our boards. And Marlene would send them electronically. Someone might open them and look at it and then never sign it. And then it eventually disappears and goes away. And so then it's got to all be recreated. And the amount of human resources that gets spent scanning all those warrants to then upload it and then to send it off.
With all due respect, Andy, the warrants were never, the individual invoicing was never scanned. We simply got the warrant sheet
The cover sheet,
electronically.
Correct. But I know that was an ongoing issue, and when I came into the office, it was one of the first things Marlene just said, can you find a way to fix it? And we haven't fixed it yet, but I agree with Jim that we should be signing warrants before we're releasing checks.
Well, I agree with that too, and I think that this is kind of, redundant probably that we're talking about this right now, but it is a problem, even though a lot of us have sat around this table for a long time, so. I would like to get it straightened out tonight and have a plan, because there's no reason for what we're doing. I see you, Jason, but Deb is back and she got her hand back up, so we're gonna let her speak.
Thank you. I got booted. And the only thing I had to say was, if you're a signer, if you agree to be one, you need to be there, or you need to pass it on to somebody else who can be there. I was there today signing, trying to get in Mondays in order to make it easier. But I realized there's a problem. There was something there from June 30th, still sitting. So that's a problem. It doesn't have a secondary signature. The only other way we could do this is to change the number of signatories to just one, so that one person with maybe a backup gets there and gets it done. But that's a policy change that we make at the table. And can we make it something other than our annual meeting change and do it mid-cycle? That's what I'm wondering. Thanks.
Thank you. Jason,
I want to apologize. I was elected signer. I was waiting for the electronic stuff, and I didn't realize you had to go down there and do it. I did it once, and then I missed two. I thought they would come electronically. I didn't realize we switched it back to in person, but I'm fully on board with holding my duty. And if something comes up, Jim or whoever, I will question it before I sign it, and is the policy, I question this, I'm not signing it until it's fixed.
If, and we can hold whatever one
That one check.
invoice you're uncomfortable with. And I will say this. This is not just the signature, but this is really validating what we're paying, because there can be mistakes. And although we want to not have any, I mean, there can be, and I just, it's a check and balance in the whole system. And it's an important one. This is one that is not just for the signature. This is to say, I want that held. I disagree with you paying that. I want to know why that was bought. So I just think it's that type of attitude that you have to go in when you're checking.
And I had a bunch of questions and you were able to answer them because the invoices were attached to it. And I like
Thank
to
you.
be able to see that.
any other questions for Jim?
I've got one.
Priscilla?
It's not on there, but do you know when the retention bonuses are planning to go out?
I wanna
They were
say-
supposed to be April, so.
And I know, and I apologize for not being able to get them out. I'm telling you, we're drowning trying to get the stuff done and done correctly, because I'm not just shoveling stuff. It's got to be right. It's got to be accurate. And I think, Jason, using the e-finance system had a heck of a time in making sure that the last payments for last year's fiscal year were done and added up and were accurate. It's a time-consuming process with e-finance. And I assure you that it's normal systems, you would not be putting the time that we are into processing payroll. But we're trying to do it and do it right. And I apologize. I know for everybody, Andy, I apologize to you as well, because I know that this is a big push to get it out. And of course, we want to get the retention bonuses out. Oh my gosh, because people are who we're about, and we just want to encourage them. So
Yeah, it's in a follow-up on that, Jim, if I can interrupt. Just, the second one for, it comes out of ESSER one funds, right? And no, okay, then we're okay, because I was worried about the fact that the second half of that was said it was gonna come out in October, so, and if it was cut off the end of September, I was worried.
Yeah, so if I could, I sent you an email follow-up with
Oh,
Jack.
did you? Okay.
And I'm just waiting for some confirmation, which is why I don't want to give a date out of, I tried to work with Jason because a lot of it has to do with having to do a payroll run and when it happens and not impacting our normal payroll runs, because we don't want to make sure people get the regular paychecks too. And some of it came with the fact that all of the SU fund, or all the funds came to the SU. But because we're not a school district, we are a supervisory union. And there's the individual districts and the people are paid out of their individual districts. That means that you have to cut the checks out of the individual districts. But because the money comes to the SU, you have to do a sub-grant from the SU to the different school districts. And so we had to learn how to do that because all the folks were new in the business office taking care of that. So Shirley Lynch and Jason and Trish Adams spent a lot of time working with the AOE, learning how to do these sub-grants. We had to rewrite then the original line item that we had done. Wait for that to get approved, because you want to make sure it's approved before you go on and do it. And then we got to a point where we were ready to go. We've been communicating this with the faculty and the staff about the delays. And then right as we were getting ready, we were coming up on the end of year. And the end of year and the balloon payments and everything like that become this huge lift to try and make sure that we get through that. Wanted to make sure we got that done. And that takes a couple months lead in time. And then we got to the point where we were about ready to do it. And then we had the retroactive pays as the different CBAs come on board, right? So we're playing this catch up constantly. So then we got to roll a year over, right? So that just is another lift. And we're moving around some, getting legal with not being 2 weeks in arrears, but only being a week in arrears. So we got to where we believe we have a date. I just want to verify it with Jason. I sent him an email today. And then have it spread out for when the others will come through. So everyone will have the dates. They'll know when they're getting their checks. So yeah, it's been a long haul and people have been patient and I appreciate that. So.
Does it impact though people that have gotten done? Because the thing we signed as board chair says that it only goes to people who are currently employed.
That is correct.
Margot?
I just wanted to say thank you for these reports. It's nice to see something concrete and understandable.
Oh, I wish that I had a year's worth of background. It would be helpful.
Thank you.
So Jim, I hope that by the end of tonight, we have warrant signing under control. It was a real eye opener listening to June about some things. You know, it's real good questions and it's things that I think as board members, you know, those that have never done that or don't do it, don't realize how important that is to get that done and to read them and to look at them and see what's on there. And, you know, and right now it's nice to have somebody that you can ask, what does that mean? Because I've been in offices before where I've been signing warrants and asked what it meant, and you know, they just didn't know. So I appreciate that. I also, you know, I got the emails about retention bonuses and I understand that we need to get them out, but what I heard tonight was we want to do it correctly. And David, you've been on these boards longer than I have, and I've been on these boards so long and heard so many incorrect things in the finance area that I was just, thank you. Let's wait and do it correctly, because that's the most important part of, there's been so many times where just everybody stepped running rogue and then there's this huge mess. So Thank you very much.
Okay.
Anyone else? Deb, you good? Tanya, any questions? I don't know why I'm yelling. It feels like they're a long ways away.
Molly, I did have a question. Did we resolve the problem to make sure these get signed and reviewed in a timely manner?
Oh, we have on number 7, we're gonna talk about that, but I just wanted to be able to talk to Jim a little bit about the legalities of all of it, but we'll get to it on 7.
Okay, thank you very much.
Tanya? I think she's good. Thank you very much, Jim.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Superintendent?
I don't know, it's been a pretty quiet month. So I don't have a lot to update folks on. Couple of things though. One is the retention bonus, was one of them. But also we are looking into, we have a meeting coming up with the bridge closure. I don't know how much that's going to impact our students here at the high school, especially from Grafton and Saxon's River. I don't know how much they actually access that way as the what's going to be the detour, and then I don't know how much traffic's going to be there. I was just coming back that way today, and I was like, I'm like, wow, that road is going to get
I
worse.
live on that road.
Oh, do you?
Oh,
Bless your heart. That's not my truck you see going flying by. No, I can, just driving it today, I was thinking like, wow, this is going to be a huge impact on that road. And so I don't know how much of our buses, we got a meeting coming up with our, with transportation and just, some of the principals to really talk about where that impact is going to be. But, it's at 18 months. I couldn't find a start date.
I don't think
They don't have one
They
yet.
don't have one yet. And I prodded the towns to try and get that because I think we need to know that as far as school is concerned. And then, Deb Cardane, who's our Director of Innovation and Instruction, she came on board July 1st. So she's been getting up to speed on things, meeting with principals, which has been great, and doing those things. And then Kelly Orion, we brought on as the restorative practices for the high school position, but we've also coupled that with a lot of her expertise background was in Title IX, but also in diversity and equity. And as a district, we're supposed to have diversity and equity coordinators. I think I found somewhere this year that somewhere on paper I was named it at some point. So she'll be coming on. She's been getting up to speed on a lot of that work that she'll need to do, but I think it'll be timely with her being here. So she'll work as a diversity equity coordinator for the whole SU, but will be housed here at the high school so she can be available for students. So that's all I have right now.
Any questions for our superintendent? We've been off easy tonight. Can you tell me, I heard that there was a new transportation, what do we call that position? Coordinator?
There has been interviews. The committee has made a recommendation.
So nobody's hired yet.
I have not met with that person. Apparently, that's my understanding is people were told or someone was told that they had a position. I haven't even had a conversation yet. So,
I was just
Yeah,
curious who it
so-
was. I have not heard that, so.
yeah, so as soon as we get there,
Okay.
hopefully. But I was on vacation last week, so I wasn't able to meet.
Good for you. Jason,
Was this, who was the first person? You said, I heard
Deb.
Kelly Orion.
Deb Cardane, it's with a K.
And what is her title again?
She's the Director of Innovation and Instruction.
What does that mean?
Is the traditional role would be a curriculum and instruction, Director of Curriculum and Instruction.
And these two people that we've hired, what do they make? And who pays them? Is it out of
Off the
ESSER?
top of my head, I don't have their salaries. They're paid out of ESSER right now. The director of the assistant superintendent position, which is kind of that Director of Curriculum and Instruction, was a half local, half grant funding position always. And so we'll be looking to build that back into the superintendent budget, using the same kind of format, so.
Anyone have a question for our superintendent? Doesn't appear that we have one. Mr. Bradley, I think it's you.
Okay, first of all, I'd like to start by just giving you guys a bit of background on my last few weeks. I preempted it when I put it out. My mom, who's 93, fell about 4 weeks ago prior to making a big house move this weekend. And she had a compound fracture in her pelvis and she fractured her 11th vertebrae. So I've had a lot of time in the last 4 weeks, quality time with my mother, who they get younger when they get older. God love her. But I've been spending a lot of time down there in South Carolina, helping her out to get her back on her feet, first of all, and then get her moved over the last week. And believe me, I would rather, no, I wouldn't, that's not fair, but it was tough. She's still my mother. So I've put as much effort as I could right now. If there's any unanswered questions, please either email Molly or email me. I'll be happy to follow up on it now that I'm back. Hopefully she's on the right mend. So it's not an excuse. I just like to be very transparent about what goes on. Those that know me know that I tend to share my life with everybody. So, HVAC update. On Friday, I was in South Carolina, but I still was able to meet with Mike and Ryan Meadows, who are our M&E gentlemen engineers who are working on our HVAC project. They're looking to come up with a final. I shared it with all board members. The draft, it's the third draft that we're looking at. They're just trying to get a handle on what the final project might be, and then how do we put it forward to ESSER, and how do we, there's a lot of things that need done, and they're aware of that. They're very, very good in their works, but they want to get it done in a timely manner too. And I enclosed it for you to have a look at. And I talked with Mike, and he would be more than happy in our next meeting, which hopefully will be a little bit further on in the preparation, planning, and them drawing up things to present at our board meeting, and then take any questions that you guys might have, because I figured that when we were talking about it, it's far better than him being here to answer your question directly. And he's not shy to come out, and he's very good to work with. So hopefully, if that works, hopefully that'll be acceptable for him to give you a lot more answers than I probably can. Nitty-gritty stuff.
John, may I interrupt and add one more piece
Sure.
to this HVAC system?
Oh,
Because,
yeah, sure.
one of the things we found out, we had applied for, through Efficiency Vermont, to try and access some of their funds for some of the HVAC systems. And we had a meeting with someone from Energy Vermont a few weeks, almost a month ago.
Yeah,
at
it
this
was a while
point,
ago.
and found out that we were kind of moving forward in their second round. And so they wanted to talk to us about the whole plan here at the high school. And I said to the woman, I said that we were looking to going through ESSER, and she said, well, where are you with the ESSER piece? And I said, well, we have concept approval. And I said, we have approval. And she went, oh, I guess you're done. And this just before John had jumped on the meeting, and I said, well, wait, what do you mean? And she said, I said, we only have concept approval. She goes, oh, if you only have concept approval, you can still move forward. If you have project approval, you can't access this money. So slow down, which is like, John hates hearing me say this, right? Like, it's like we go fast, it goes slow. I queried her a few times saying, like, where are we on this? And she said, well, it's the people are planning and doing some things, or they're looking at it. So we haven't heard back, but a portion, and it sounded very, she was very positive about this, I thought, in our meeting. A portion of this whole plan might get covered under that portion of the grant, which would reduce the amount that it would impact out of ESSER, and that those funds could be redistributed. And it seemed like things that maybe the part that hadn't been done yet in the building, I forget what wings. But there's one wing that had, some of it's just repair and upgrade work, and others is like new work. So it seemed like the new work could be done under that grant as opposed to the makeup work. So it is positive, but it's this constant, like, and I think people think we make it up, but you know, it is something that we are working on, which I was.
Well, Ryan, who's a designer as well, he's broken down the jobs, because I spoke to them about that, where, you know, they said they might be able to pay for a portion of some of it, where, you know, if it was a whole project, they didn't have enough money to pay for the whole project. But he's kind of broken down the areas that were the 4 areas: the B wing, the C wing, the climate, and another little bit needs done to the D wing, and one other area that looked fairly minimum. I can't remember right now, but, and that's what they want to explain as well, to give the broader understanding of where we're at with it. So, but they're very thorough, and Ryan's done what I see as a good job. And, you know, although I've become very much more acquainted with HVAC over the last 12 months, I feel that they'll do a better answer than I would in answering any question about any of the scope. So, Haver, I met with the representative on May 16th, and then we had our June meeting. The minutes for it. Request board approved graduate. Oh yeah. So what I talked about was making financial literacy a graduation requirement, which I have put out to, not officially, but we've talked a little bit about it, and I think that might be a good thing for us to put on an agenda, an upcoming agenda before the kids return, which will probably be the next meeting. They want to continue to support online learning, leading to graduation, which is one of the 4 areas. Also, she wanted me to communicate in the summer with the young man who had started with Kristen designing, at least getting us some designs. I've emailed him once and called him. They're very busy. They're very behind. Again, I just gotta, when they shoot back your email saying, "Did you remember you sent this one?" It's one of these functions of Google that I just sent him, I believe, last week, if he had any time to come out in the next 4 weeks, but I haven't had any response to that one. But what Carolyn said to me was, you know, if we can get a ballpark figure for upgrade, then at our next meeting with them with her to give her some idea of what we're looking for, and they may fund it. No harm, no foul. Wouldn't mind moving ahead with that. Next year, we want to look at a plan of maybe, and we'll discuss this maybe at the committee level, of developing a plan for economics, maybe even developing a high credit course to make it more enticing for students to sign up, because that was one of the downfalls, or one of the deterrents of kids signing up for our economics classes. And then I'm scheduled, according to Carolyn, Maureen is coming up in the fall. Maureen Haver herself, I believe she has a house in Saxon. She's coming up in the fall to discuss what she's done, and possibly have a visit to school depending on her schedule. And I'd love her to come and walk around and chat. And I'm happy if anybody else wants to be here as well, because I think it shows well that we appreciate what she's done, and I think she loves our school. And I think it'd be good to give her a little bit of love back. So, in talking with Molly, there was a few other points put on. I see special ed programs, but I think that was meant to be our AEP and our freshman academy around our MTSS of students. And if we look at it in terms of interventions tried for AEP, alternative education program, most AEP students have been unsuccessful in the mainstream. We often try interventions, accommodations in class. We try title support, schedule changes, etc. And with all that, if a student is still not being successful and behind on credits, AEP is another option that we can offer. Many AEP referrals struggle with consistent attendance as well, and it allows us to get a little bit more tender loving care to talk about the whys of not being in school, and if they feel more comfortable, maybe they'll come more often. Many of these students, they need a quiet and self-contained learning environment, one that gets support from the teacher. I know that the two teachers we have spend a lot of time one-on-one with kids. They go, in my terms anyway, they go above and beyond in calling home and working with the kids, and just doing everything they can to get them to be in school and be successful. Also, I met with Shelley Wilson, our new MTSS person for the district, and I'm hoping that working with her, she can help us more clearly define our MTSS in our building. Freshman Academy continues to support freshmen. In fact, today was our first day of visits. We carried on the COVID trend of having families and kids meet here. We have both counselors are working with Mr. Obi, who's been our point person for years, which is enabling us to meet with parents, go through all the aspects of high school, give them a tour of the building, make them feel comfortable, and work on the schedule pretty much right as they're here. So that's been very helpful. Freshman Academy teachers predominantly teach most freshmen and are able to discuss common students, provide supports for students, meet with parents and students to discuss their plans, plans that kids may be on and plans that maybe we have to develop for them. This year we'll be using a more data-driven approach when discussing each student. We're really going to go back into taking a look at every piece of data, looking at attendance, class interventions, what's working, what's not, scheduling, academic support, etc. Again, we'll seek advice from Shelley on how we can improve this process. I know we talked a while ago, I believe it was before our main meeting, about our athletic director presenting. I know that Ian had done a full presentation, so I would say that he's going to be, to answer one of the questions, he's going to be full-time in our building, not do anything with the middle school this year. I think that's around budgeting and just not. We need to talk more about what his role might be and how he would do it if he was going to do it. And I'd like him to do a full presentation, maybe again at our next meeting. So because he's got it ready to go, and I think it would be better having him go through his full schedule and have you right to the horse's mouth and get answers. Another question that was posed was, no, it wasn't at the last meeting because we were in South Carolina, but Miss Iman had asked for another leave of absence. And then the next day, an article appeared in media around some venture that she was doing around childcare and meeting her issues of not, which were causing her not to be able to work. And my first knowledge of that was when David had sent an article around saying, "Oh, look at this," and that was the first time I had read that. Thanks for keeping me on it. And I was right the next morning. So, update on diversity. After discussion on diversity in the last few meetings, I know the request of the board has asked, what action administration is taking to address this situation. My understanding of addressing it is what are we doing moving forward? What are we looking at to provide educational opportunities and opportunities for all of our students? And the bullets there, they're not all we're doing, but it's all that I was thinking about as we get ready for this upcoming year. Plan further staff diversity training. I know John Underlider has done 5 sessions with our staff on the use of circles in our homeroom and how to effectively run them and have kids feel comfortable with us using them. Plan for addressing diversity of students at the beginning of the next year. I know I talked with June, probably it was in May, I think, June, we talked about that, beginning on day one and then reinforcing it throughout the year. And the plan is to do that on the first day or first 2 days of school, spend time with kids, really going through a lot of diversity, a lot of treating each other with respect and nice, how to report, talk about what a bystander is and how, and again, I'm just giving you a few caveats of what I see in being. And then throughout the year, meeting monthly, which we've scheduled already, monthly homeroom extended meetings, where hopefully our director or RP person will help us support that notion and give us great essential questions to work with kids. First of all, focusing on school climate, and then moving to whatever we need to really do. And again, I just said that and see kind of repetitive. Use data to further drive approaches to educate students further. So again, look at whether what reports we have they gone up, have they gone down, what area, what protected categories they are, to be able to look at all those and as we're moving through the year, come up with strategies to meet the needs of our students and make them feel safe and comfortable in the building. Continue to work with the Vermont Partnership for Fairness and Diversity. Now, again, we spoke earlier about an invoice that came from them. And when we set up that first meeting, I've worked with Curtis for many years, and not recently. I worked with them a lot in my early days as assistant principal, and there was never a charge to meet with him. And I guess in meeting, setting up this meeting, I know that's the way that I was moving. And then when we got that bill, I was kind of shocked as well. But I guess in this day and age, you have to pay for most things that we get. So, again, I'm going to continue, but it will be at a very light rate because we haven't budgeted a ton of money for meeting with Curtis often. And the one major thing that I'd like to do is put an anonymous reporting box outside the other door of my office to encourage reporting of incidents. So again, come up with an anonymous form that students can at least give us information about whatever the incidents may be and who the people are that are involved. They won't be signing it, but it will help us get maybe a quicker understanding and a better understanding of what's going on and who the students or people in the building that are doing these things. Again, being anonymous, we can only take that, look at it, and keep tabs on it. But then if other things do arise from that, then at least we'll have further information on students and what they do. Health guidance was another question. Andy, I don't know if there's any new specs. I haven't seen any. And my guess is that we just move forward as normal. If there are any changes or new variants that first again on
COVID. I had health curriculum in my head. Sorry.
Check in with you, and then follow the. I would imagine we're going to follow the State Department of Health and AOE again.
Yeah, we haven't received anything of late. We get a weekly update from the Secretary of Education that usually outlines what they're looking at doing, if we haven't gotten anything.
I mean, I'm hopeful that we have a good normal year and curveballs thrown in. So I did add 2 points on, again, just in my lack of thinking, I was like, oh, why would I not put something good on? But I did send out the AP scores. I printed some paper copies as well. If people need them here. So, again, snapshot. My plan is to do The tables that Mr. Murphy did last year, they don't cut and paste very well. I tried cut and paste them and it got rid of some of the information and skewed the lines. So I'm going to redo this for the next time we meet and give you a full comparison of what we've done and how we've done it over the last 6 years and how the scores have improved or not. This year, the snapshot version is we had an 84.6% pass rate. The number of 5s, number of 4s, number of 3s, they're all considered a pass on the AP. And then we had no 1s, fortunately, and we had four kids with 2s. But I'm told that 2 of them probably could have got a 3. But
That means they just don't get college credit
they don't get college credit.
unless you're a 543.
Yes. So again, it's a snapshot. I'm going to give you a fuller version for our next meeting. So,
Some colleges don't even accept the 3s. It's up to the college.
You have one more before I take David's question.
yeah. Oh, and then I met Jim, I'm getting gas yesterday, and met Jim Ruggiero. He had talked a long time, over 6 months, 8 months, about wanting to put a snack shack out back, a concession stand, dedicated to his son and helping us use it for our students. Help the Booster Club use it as well for a way to earn some more money. He did do a design, and I couldn't share that because my electronic version wouldn't share it. This is one that he had drawn up. Again, this is just in, what do you think about this mode? This is in no way gone anywhere. He would pay all the costs associated with planning, the construction, bathroom hookup or septic, and all the associated costs of maintaining it. So if it was a septic, he would be the one that would be emptying it every year or two and getting that taken care of for us. That was his words of yesterday. So I just wanted to see that you all see it and see what you think. And again, I'm not going to move forward until I get to from this board. So, but it's something that he's wanted to do for a little while now. He did get the plans drawn up and he sent them to me about 10 days ago. Again, I was doing that, so I'm gonna have to officially launch it. So, but again, it's just a
And he's doing all the planning,
all of it.
all
He
the
said
permits.
he would pay for, he would work with us to do the permits and then he would pay for them all. And pay for the construction, development, septic if needed, and then,
David,
Well, I just want to say that maybe it's not this school board, but a previous school board that sat at this table accepted a donation for the lights on Hadley Field. Cost us $40,000 in lawyering it because we had the gift-or take care of the permits. I just want to say that we maybe learned a lesson and we maybe want to check our policy book on that. And I do have one other comment, and then I have some questions, which actually I think that I'm going to ask that we forwarded to a future agenda.
Sure.
And that is that an anonymous tip box outside the principal's door is not anonymous. It is not anonymous. You're going to have a hard time getting a kid who really has a problem do it because he becomes or she becomes a marked person. I think something along the line of the FBI's anonymous tip line, which I believe is electronic, might be much more conducive to soliciting tips, as well as the fact that that's the way young people, I believe, communicate these days electronically. So I'm just commending that to your attention.
no,
Put them in the bathrooms if you want it anonymous. Put it in the bathrooms,
We'll get
read
ripped off the
paper,
walls.
but don't put it outside the principal's office. Okay, Haver. Well, my first question was, when did it last meet? I got the answer. So the questions are, what is the stakeholder reputation? Remember, at this point, they're just rhetorical, because I'd like to come back to them. Where's the work product? Where are the docs? How is it tracked? And when I refer to how is it tracked, I'm really talking about Mrs. Breyer's 6 steps for successful grant administration. Okay. Diversity, I guess we'll be coming back to that. AEP and Freshman Academy. I think there may have been a misconception in what I was looking for. What I'm asking for is really a program evaluation. I can tell you bluntly, because I've been at the table long enough to know that there has never been a program evaluation of the AEP, Alternative Education Program. And I think it's about time that we took a look at that. My question around AEP and MTSS, which stands for Multi-Tiered Support System. If there's anybody out in the peanut gallery who wonders what we're talking about multi-tiered support systems, which is the notion that the classroom teacher owns every kid in their classroom, not just the ones they want to teach, but all of them. And if they have issues in terms of effectively educating those kids, then there is a scaling up form of supports for the kid and the teacher, multi-tiered support systems. And I want to point out that at this high school, our AEP population essentially has been handed up to us, in my belief, by a failure of effective supports in the lower grades. So we didn't start the problem, we own the problem, but what I want to know is AEP still the 21st century solution to the problem? Okay, so let's come back and see what AEP looks like. And, you know, Freshman Academy was one of the outcomes from our association with the Southern Regional Education Board's program called High Schools That Work. And I think you were in on that in the early days, John. And yeah, I'm a believer. But I would still like to know what we're doing and how we evaluate it. Okay, I suppose it's a program evaluation too. And when we had discussion earlier in the year about possibly having a board retreat, one of the discussion items I was hoping we would talk about would be the benefits of AP, advanced placement, college credit classes taught here at the high school versus how much bang for the buck on a relative basis we'd be getting out of dual enrollment, where a kid might actually get a credit through Keene State College or some other institution. And, you know, once again, I think that's a kind of a program evaluation question. So I think I will stand down at that point and make a few more comments on the director's comments. Thank you, Molly.
June?
How many kids are enrolled in our AEP program?
I don't have that information great at this moment, but certainly
Okay.
get that
and,
for you. I know it.
uh,
It's fairly steady, but it can go up and down. So I wanted to-
Okay, and a question on placement. Have you thought about where this might go? This soccer field hockey snack shack?
Oh, yes, right, I don't know if you know, we do the state finals out back and we put it right on that corner, you know, with the, just as you go out the main gap and you go around, then the fields, there's field hockey and soccer and then the centerpiece right on that corner. Because it would involve minimal disruption to shrubs and not be in the way of stuff.
And I don't know if this is a good time or not, but I had some questions on your graphing from that you
Sure.
gave us last meeting. Were these confirmed cases of bullying and
Yes,
harassment?
all of those were confirmed, followed up on, and sanctioned.
Okay, so we don't have a number of, yeah, how many were reported? Okay, okay. Because I'm thinking that because of past meetings, there was, if you overhear something, part of it, and it might be offensive to you, but it wasn't the whole thing, and then it gets reported and all that, how many of those happen?
I can get, I reckon, tend to get that info, because on the front sheet of the investigation form, it does ask the question of, does it warrant investigation or not? And I know we've had, I wouldn't like to say how many, but there have been some that just didn't warrant based on the evidence or lack thereof.
And then if I could just add on, because John and I talked about this a little bit afterwards. So sometimes, again, as a building administrator, I'm gonna put that hat back on and think of it. You might be told something and you might pull a kid aside or talk to a kid, but it doesn't even make it to the form because it was, so what is reported, what is heard, what is reported, what is, followed up on, it's a process. And so sometimes you might say, someone might say, oh, I heard a kid say this. And then when you follow up with it, you find out that that was misheard, right? So there's a lot of work administrators do that never even gets reported, put in. And that's another thing that we're working on with implementing SWIS here at the high school. SWIS is, and I don't know the acronym, and I'm sorry, David, school-wide something and system. And it's basically a reporting system that as you get that data, you put it in, and then we have another system that we purchased, which is called Panorama, that helps to kind of pull all that data together so we can give you better answers that you're asking for. So we are working on this.
All right, and John, my other question is, do you have any idea of the curriculum for the addressing the students at the beginning of the year? Or do we know who's going to do that?
I'm going to meet with Kelly on the 4th of August. That's our URP person, and talk with her. So I'll have a better answer for you after that day. And I can certainly be happy to send it out to everybody ASAP and not wait till the next board meeting.
Okay, yeah, I mean, and like we talked about, I think it's a good idea to get all of the kids right
100%.
off the bat, and the staff and any board member that wants to pop in.
Yeah. And we've already scheduled one Thursday every month for the whole year. We've done the year calendar in a lot of areas, so we've already scheduled the Thursdays that we're going to do the extended homerooms to meet those.
And then, and in those, you're gonna have talking points.
We're going to have talking points.
So that it
We're
doesn't.
going to begin with school climate, and then we'll go from there. So,
Okay, well, if I can help in any way, let me
sure,
know.
absolutely.
I think Tanya had her hand up, Jason, and then I'll get you. Tanya?
Yeah, I just was curious on we talk a lot about safety and for the kids, it seems like a smaller group, but for the whole entire school, like I saw $8,000 come out of the budget for security. What do we do for security at the high school?
That's a big question.
So that is a good question. That was on my radar too. I did see that $8,000 too. Have we changed something?
I can answer that. Because when I signed the warrants, part of it was for the graduation for the security up there.
Oh, secure. Okay, sorry. I was thinking of the security.
Oh, I was thinking that it
No, I
was
know you
security for the building.
No, it was
Oh, it could be
the couple of
games.
cops that we had up there. It was
Last night. And then graduation.
very expensive.
They are.
And don't we get them for games too?
Yeah. Yes.
Possibly.
There might be more to it, but that's what I read into. I don't know the dollar amount, but
There's more details than.
Well, on the warrant that Marlene sent to me, there's a item for the Wyndham County Sheriff's Department for security for graduation that is $1,166. I don't know if that encompasses class night or not.
Well, it's, yeah, I know we do games, graduation, class night, and the games.
But on this sheet that Jim just gave us, there's an $8,000 different charge. I don't think it's got anything to do with that warrant.
Okay.
I can go back with Jim and pull that out and get that information for you, because that's, it'll come down to a line item. Can I see that?
So the question, and maybe Tanya's got the same question I've got. And then Jason, I'll go to you, but Sandra, safety and security. He's got an 8,000, he's bumped it up from 3,400 to 8,000. And I think that, right here, on the second page, safety and security. Yeah, so probably a subject for the next meeting, John, but I think that it is good for the community to know what we are doing to just keep our schools safe.
I can remember a little of that right now.
So, I think that that's, if we all stop watching TV, we're probably okay, but
Well,
it's
I
the
know-
world
I know I have a
news
meeting-
and it's
I know I have
something
a
we have
meeting
to
tomorrow,
consider.
so I'll come back. So I had contacted the Secretary of Education quite a while ago, and was put into communication with Rob Evans, who works with the agency on security. He's a former Vermont State Trooper. And so we set up a meeting for him to come down today and tomorrow. And so he was down, we visited 2 schools today. And then he's going to be he's going to be at the high school tomorrow, and then he'll be at Central Elementary School also tomorrow. And then follow up with 2 other schools he hasn't been able to get to. But basically, he's doing a threat assessment audit and a security audit of all of our buildings, of all of our procedures. We provided all of our plans to him ahead of time. I sat through the 2 today. The questions he asked are like, he's getting down to like, do all your teachers know how to access the intercom system? Like really, really detailed questions, and then that report, that audit will come back. He's already been suggesting that certain things, we need to really take a hard look at. He even talked about, if you've got, funds that are left over, maybe you talk to your boards about setting aside some of those funds to feed some of these things. The 2 schools we were at today, they have 2 different types of camera systems, 2 different types of locking systems, 2 different types of use of radio systems. And so basically the AOE is saying a lot of this needs to come at the SU district level now, and they want it to all be kind of pushed out. He's kind of preloaded us. There's a bunch of stuff that's going to hit August 1st on safety. He said there's probably going to be some mandates coming from the agency now around safety reporting that we're going to have to do. I just was in contact with lieutenant from the Westminster station, the fire station.
John Parker?
Yes, about setting up a meeting to kind of get what was in play prior to COVID, get it back on track so we can get those things in place. So it's like on the front of our minds, we're getting it. We'll be bringing those reports when they're done. So,
Jason?
John,
Sure.
when was the money donated for Haver? What year? You remember?
December 19th, 2019.
2019. And I'm glad you have in here about the science lab. So what I heard you say was that she's also gonna maybe help out with fixing some of what was brought up a few meetings ago, outlets and stuff like
Yeah,
that,
she had asked
safety
me,
concerns.
what do you need? And I didn't know really, because prices are just going crazy. That's why I want to meet with at least this one chap who's already started working with us to get a ballpark figure. So
Where the vice principal, is she coming to the meetings?
she is, not tonight, she's on vacation. she's returning from driving back from Myrtle today and gets home tonight. She'll be in tomorrow morning.
Okay.
So
And thank you for the update with the athletic director. As you know, I don't like things hanging around, so I like to get them out in the open, resolve them. And I have, a couple of emails from parent and staff with questions for the athletic director. I encourage the people to come, but some of them.
well, that's what I figured again, kind of like the engineers, we've got nothing to hide. Let's get people here and talk and make things better.
So thanks for that. In the collective bargaining, we're supposed to do staff reviews. What is the timeline for staff reviews? How does that work?
We do staff observation and evaluation, then it should come in at the end of the year, and it's final, basically, unless you have a concern with a staff member.
So like, I know unions and private sector, blah, blah, blah. If I'm the librarian and how do I know how I'm doing every year? If somebody complains about me, that's how you get a review? Or
No.
I just trying to
Not
understand.
necessarily, I mean, we would listen to complaints again, there's a policy for that as well.
But do you do a review with every employee? It's in the collective bargaining, so is it a written, is it going to
It's a written
file?
evaluation.
Every year we do that?
Every 3 years. Every 3 years, the staff member has to be reviewed at least 3
Yes,
times
yes.
in that year.
That's right, cycle.
If you need more, and if the administration needs more, they can also be on that same review process the second year. But usually they would then move to a second year where they develop a project that they need to complete. And then they report in and meet with the administration to report that project. That project can be either just that 1 year, or it could be 2 years. If it's only 1 year, then the third year, they do another project.
When I was
The
looking,
fourth year, they would be back on cycle 1 where they do the evaluations.
when I was looking at the increase schedule, I think everyone was step 75 or whatever the highest step was. So if you've been here a certain amount of years, 10, 20 years, what is the review process then? Is it still every 3 years?
So, yeah, so it'd be 3 years. So 6
So this past year, Mr. Pratt had begun a process of moving us to a new evaluation system. And we're continuing on looking at that process because the dog and pony show is not the most effective way to evaluate teachers. And when I say the dog and pony show, it's the, hey, Jason, come on, sit down. Okay, on pick a day that we're going to come in and do an observation. You tell me exactly what you're going to do. You hand me your lesson plan.
Everything's perfect that day.
Maybe you do, right? Maybe you do lesson plan, maybe you don't.
Necessarily.
Then we go, we observe, we see it. Yeah, okay, great. Now, obviously, as John's talking about, if there's things you're hearing about a teacher, you might bring those, you should have brought those up as an administrator, talk to them, okay, there's certain things I want to look for. You go in and look, do those looks. We're migrating to a much more of a continuous movement through the classrooms. And so you're in there not for the, like, say, the full 80 minutes or 45 minutes. You're in for 10 minutes and you're doing more frequent snapshots throughout the day kind of thing. So you're not always coming into, Mrs. So-and-so's first period block class when the kids are really compliant, but it's the last block class.
Do we document them written?
Yep, and so then that's a written piece. So some of it is working with the association, because that's how the CBA is written, that that's a collaborative piece. So that's one of the things we've begun working with them on, and we'll continue to work on, come up with that. And then we still have, like, let's say you go do those observations, you have concerns, you can still do the scheduled, I want to come in and do an observation and do those things. And then there is a process that if a teacher were to be on a cooperative improvement plan, there's a set schedule within the CBA, and I don't want to quote the dates, but it has to be done by a certain amount of time. It has to last for a certain amount of.
Right. And it also goes the other way too. I'm not looking at the negative part. I'm looking at if somebody's doing a great job,
And it all has to happen before April 15th.
That's when we get the cut. Right.
That's April 15th. They must be told, be offered a contract, yes.
So, on the Curtis Reed, you mentioned about having to pay. So I think that you said you might continue to do that. I think that since we have a restorative practice person and somebody else we hired, plus Andy's salary, plus your salary, plus the vice principal's salary, plus a teacher's salary, I don't think there's any need to continue to pay somebody outside when we can handle stuff in-house. Just my opinion. I don't know if we have to vote on that or whatever, but, and
I value, I mean, I do value what Curtis has to say. It was just a show, sticker show.
well,
Yes, because we have worked with them a lot.
I just think that it just makes sense that if we're already paying everyone else, why do we need to pay someone else? Otherwise, we don't need everyone who's here.
Yeah.
Just, and, you know, when you talked about bullet point 6 here, update on diversity, with all due respect, that's not what we asked for. I specifically asked for if there was a problem that was stated, has the administration investigated it? What was the outcome? And then if there was a problem, what are we doing about it? And what I'm hearing you say is, this is what we're doing going forward. So the allegation has, in my mind, still has not been addressed, whether it's true or false. That's all I want to know. True or false, get it out in the open, move on. You know, and I come into the building here today, you know, I don't know what this sign here says, but it says more accepting school for LGBTQI plus students by changing school rules. Why? What the rules are the rules. So if we don't like them, we just change them. Doesn't make sense to me. So if the speeding limit is 55 and I go speeding, I say, well, officer, I'm going to make that 80 because that's the rule. I mean, is that what we're doing now? We don't like the rules, we're going to change them, but that's what it says. It's right here in this building. So I'm confused. And again, I don't know what happened. I wasn't here. I wasn't the one being attacked that day. But I'm disappointed that we're still talking about this. I want to move on. That's all I have to say.
So it's one of the things I've asked Kelly Orion to look into as she comes on board, is to look into past allegations as she's looking forward also. It's just, she's working sporadically right now, and obviously to try and follow up with people, we need to wait for teachers to come back. I mean, as far as what you pointed out on the wall, I think that student voice is one of the most important things that we have in our school systems. And having a brainstorming session where kids maybe get together with an adult and brainstorm on different things doesn't always necessarily mean that's going to be what happens, but it's how students are able to voice their opinions and talk about how they have influence and equity of voice in their own school. And so there are many schools that have student codes of conduct that are driven by students. I was talking with the Burlington high school principal at the end of June. And one of the things that they do is they have this equity of voice with students on their code of conduct, and the students end up policing themselves. And so a young lady had come in with a bare midriff shirt, and she'd gotten in trouble for it. She said, well, I don't think it's right. And so they talked about the fact that there's this process. And so the student went through the process, and through talking with other students and whatever, that policy got changed. Now, part of that, we didn't get into it, but part of that whole conversation is, it's not just students say, I want this changed, so we change it. It's the conversation that administration and faculty have with students to provide that equity of voice, so that therefore it's not just adults telling kids, yes, you can do this, and no, you can't do that, because there's always a lot of why. And one of the things we want to teach our kids is about process. And we want to teach them about being, members of our society and to question, just because a rule is there, does that always mean that's the only say? I mean, do you have no voice? So I don't know what that Venn diagram up there is for exactly, but I would imagine that that is probably what that is for, that it's not just, this is what's happening.
Thank you for the explanation, Anna.
I think the hard part when we come in this room a lot of times for some of us is I kind of feel that it's one side. We had to ask for an American flag to come in here and still not on the same right side.
That will not happen
No
here.
disrespect to you, or you haven't even been here, but the point is, it kind of feels one-sided in this room. And so that, I think that is really, when you look around and not that I agree or disagree with anything that's in this room, but when you look at what is in this room, it's pretty one-sided. And this is 330 kids in here or something, so this is our room. This is the room that is supposed to make every kid in here comfortable. And I think that's the question about what that's been up there for a long time. And so if it was a class and they learned it, then, okay, it's been up there long enough. Or if it's what this room stands for, we need to just make it more diversified in this room. So I think that's really what, without, we've tried very careful. We've tried to be very careful about how we approach that stuff, and no matter how we do it, we get ourselves in trouble. But that's, I think, what Jason's really getting at is it's kind of one-sided. I have another question. So I totally understand having a donation and getting ourselves in a hot seat. And I thank you for bringing that up, because I certainly don't want to be in a hot seat over this, excuse me, but if this is something that can happen, and if it is in writing that it's going to be maintained and taken care of, because really, love the guy and I think this is a great idea, but there is some legalities here that really need to be taken care of.
And I think you respect that.
And I do too, but, so I don't want to kick a gifted horse in the mouth. This would be awesome. This would be awesome for our community, for all the kiddos that play sports down in that area that don't have to get recognized sometimes because it's kind of off in the backfield.
And porta potties.
I was gonna ask,
This would
if they
be-
saw the water closets on there, what is used out there?
Porta potties.
Porta potties, yeah, tree, yeah.
Trees. So
And my hope
This is
is
really-
that we will start getting the state soccer matches again. I mean, they're big enough.
So my point, and
So
I know I'm getting it across, but I just want to make sure I'm getting across that this is pretty cool. If you got somebody in the area, in our community, who has been so supportive of our school and our children, to want to, and has the ability to do this, let's help him help us. And do it right, and don't get us in trouble, and don't get us in court, because he wouldn't do it on purpose, but stuff
I'm
happens.
not doing anything.
But if we need to do something to say, at least let's work on this, I think that you need to bring it to the next board meeting, and
Yeah, I'm gonna talk to Jim and say.
because I do think
let him know,
that's
I mean,
pretty cool.
Unless he's watching tonight.
I mean, we have a snack shack up by the football field that is so outdated. I mean, I've worked that thing a lot of nights, and it's bad.
It's not even
And-
set up right, so you can't
And you
even.
can't even watch the
watch the
football
game.
game while you're working your tail off, making money for
for sports.
for sports. You can't even watch it. You're hollering out, what's this going on? So, pretty neat.
Well, I maybe I'm gonna get ahead of the agenda here. What comes first? The Buildings and Grounds meeting, which would be a great place to have a discussion, or the next board meeting?
So, I will answer that. I have that answer. I would like to have, which it's on the agenda, but the next Building and Grounds Committee, I would like to have it 5 o'clock on the 22nd, which is our regular meeting at 6:30. So I'd like to have an hour and a half, a walkthrough, here's what we think here, here's what we need to get some time in.
5 PM at 8.
And just a brief follow-up, can we check our policy manual? Because I believe we did write policy after
After the
the
lights.
incident with the lights.
Okay, we'll do that.
5 PM, is it August 22nd?
August 22nd.
Okay.
Molly, that's just fine, and I agree with you. That's might be a better time. It was set at 5:30 in the last minute, so. we need to
Yeah, I
make
think
sure
after
people-
seeing this, I need
People are
an,
aware.
Yeah.
we need an extra half an hour. Anything else for Mr. Bradley? Okay,
Thank you, folks.
so we just did 6D. Set the date and time of building and grounds.
go.
Thanks, David.
It's also committees at the Annie. Can I mention that policy is meeting the 27th at 5:30
Where?
at the super's office?
Okay.
Thank you.
Resignations and appointments. Do we have any? I didn't have any.
I guess the only question I would have, I know that we're trying to fill a position. If John's able to get someone for the next board meeting, which is at the end of the month.
I have someone, but I'm gonna talk to you first.
I know, that's why I haven't. I mean, I guess there's two ways about it, is a special meeting could be called, or I know that in other districts, boards have given hiring approval to the superintendent when they're not, usually in the summertime. That hasn't happened at any of the other.
So what is the position?
Math position.
Enough position.
And then, is there not a grounds position also?
Grounds,
So that's different. So
They don't have to.
certified only positions have to come and get
Okay,
board approval.
oh, okay, okay,
So that,
okay.
yeah, they're our second shift custodian and our buildings and grounds, our groundskeeper are in the works and should be with us next.
So the
next
math
week.
is the only one
Math
that
is
we
the only one
need.
that, yeah, we
right
did
now.
an interview last week, yeah.
And where are we in that process?
And I've got to talk to
In-
Andy about licensure and stuff.
Okay, so you have somebody almost ready to bring
Yeah,
to the
yes.
board. And a short 15-minute special meeting would cover that.
Yes.
David?
Maybe that's your answer. I was going to tell the board that one of the things that happens at the RVTC, particularly in the summertime, is the board delegates the authority to the chair in consultation with the superintendent director to approve those hires on behalf of the board. And of course, I don't know, that stands the statute, it hasn't been challenged in Springfield, but that certainly would be one possibility if you need a hire on short notice, and presuming that the chair is available to discharge those responsibilities, then I imagine this board could make a motion to delegate that authority.
Also, have we hired an athletic trainer? Last time you had made mention of somebody, but, so they've been hired?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, Rebecca, I forget all last name. Rebecca Benston.
Priscilla?
I feel strongly that the board should be the one to make that final approval. That's one of our responsibilities. And if you delegate it to one person, you may miss some discussion that might need to happen. I've been on a board where I know as the chair might have gone ahead with a position that somebody else might be able to bring up something that might get us up, keep us out of trouble. So I really feel that that's a board function and it should come to the board. And certainly 15 minutes for a special meeting is not that much.
Okay, 8 o'clock, August 7th. Here. I'm just kidding.
I was writing it down, Molly.
Really organized.
I'm at 8 o'clock at night.
Did you see her face?
That's a Sunday, yeah, sure. I'll be here, Molly, sure.
Okay,
Just look down the road.
so, unfinished old business, follow up on staff leave of absence.
Was that in relation
I think that was in
to-
relationship
Oh, wait a
to-
minute, we skipped over 7.
No, we were talking about resignations and appointments. That's what we've been talking about.
Well, 7A is appoint warrant sign.
Oh, we did, I'm very
Sorry.
sorry. You're right. I skipped right over 7A. So we've had a little discussion about a point warrant signer. My idea was that I was going to ask the board if June could be a warrant signer because it's embarrassing that it's not getting done and it holds everybody else's job up to not get it done. If Deb and Jason are on board and are gonna read them and look at them and they're good with that, then that's okay, but June was willing to help me because I couldn't get there, so she's doing a lot as a new board member, so I'm trying not to dump too much on her, but Deb, what do you got?
Well, only that, I mean, I'm consistently going in there when Marlene asks me to and getting them done. We just, that we have, at this point, our policy is, or procedure is 2 people must sign before checks get released. So I'm willing to stay on as a signer. I'm getting them done. It's just, we need to make sure we have consistent seconds to get
I
it.
agree. And
So I have no problem with June at all, going doing
And
that.
I believe I would like to see 2 people, because I think 2 different people look at them differently and recognize things that somebody else may not recognize.
That's true.
And, so Deb really understands the lingo of a lot of it, but you caught something different and said, what are we doing? So I do like the 2 people. Jason, are
Yes.
you're committed to? Okay, so we're gonna leave it alone as Deb and Jason. And if something happens and one of you can't, then you have to notify me, if I understand this correctly, and then I can just sign, is that true?
Molly, I think you can
Hold on.
appoint, because you have the right to appoint.
I believe you have the right to appoint.
But it would just be a simple email from what I understand that says.
We're trying to look up the Vermont statute right now, so let's just give him a second before we all start throwing things at him.
Yeah, because it would be really nice to know if we can have that third person as an alternate,
Well, there are
as
3
we have,
lines.
as we have in the past, because that
So let's
way,
let him look it up.
that
okay.
way we would know. So I'm
So
glad you
as
let me know.
Andy's
Thank you,
looking
Molly.
that up, let's just see if we can't move on here a little bit.
There are 3 lines on the warrant thing.
So
somebody has
follow
to.
up from staff leave of absence. I think this
answered.
might be about Katie Iman, and we didn't know anything about what she was doing.
Nope.
So I think that it's a really good, information to have in the back of our head when people start asking for more than one, leave of absence. We're holding the job open. And not fair if we hire that ace and tell them they only have a job for a year. That's a real bummer because, that's tough to get people if you're telling them that you might lose your job in a year because the person that we gave the leave of absence to is not ready to come back to work now. So I think as a board, that was a real learning experience and we just need to really be careful about that.
I will say in all the conversations I had with her, it was never mentioned. So it was
No,
my
I-
surprise when
I
I
believe
saw
that.
that article.
Yes, David?
It's an unpaid leave of absence, and that includes her benefits.
Correct. You meaning that
She's not drawing benefits.
She's not,
No.
no.
And the step freezes at what she was 2 years ago when she asked for her
I
first,
don't know if it's 2, but it's certainly.
when she asked for her first leave of absence.
That's what I read.
Yeah.
As it said, so.
Sure, you look like you had something. Do you want to speak? Because you more freely can. Okay.
So I'm not clear. we granted her one and then another,
We did.
but she publicly didn't recognize that. Or-
She announced that she was doing something else.
So she's not coming back.
We don't know
We
that.
don't know. She's gonna try a new venture.
We
And
said that she could not do something that was in the same venue, so,
She's doing a preschool.
okay, so it's just.
With 3 swimming pools.
I thought
in the
that was
story.
pretty ambitious. I was like, wow.
So your question then is why she can do that and couldn't do the other is what the question is raising.
Right, and for anybody, if we grant them a leave of absence,
It seems like
we had one at the SU board that, we were just, the question was raised was what happens if you get a really good candidate that is like, ready to really own this job, but then we tell them, oh yeah, by the way, this position is really open for a year.
that's why I'm asking, because our intention was to do the best for her and also
Right.
for the hiring process.
That's
that
right.
We had, because we're having a hard time getting people.
Yeah.
But the motive, then, that what you're saying to me is counter to that, so.
It feels that way.
Yeah. It was,
Yeah.
so do we do anything, like, we just say that's a learning experience?
I
And
think at this point, we've granted it,
I
so,
mean, yeah.
we'll wait and see what happens next year, but I think we learned something.
Yeah.
John, did you ask her if she was willing to come back for the theater drama part of it?
And she was gonna try and make that work with her husband's work, so she could come in. And our new choral teacher, Jennifer, is also, from what I believe, I haven't spoken to her directly, I've spoken to her when we interviewed her, and part of her background is theater and what she was teaching. So I think that Katie did step back, but we still have adequate, and then Sarah Kovac has done a bit last year as well. So I think we're in a good place, and I've asked, originally when I talked to Katie months ago, I had said I'd like us to, certainly for the musical, get back into something that is big, that involves the community, because I think we need that. So, and she agreed, so I don't know what she looked at, but we'll certainly have that on pretty soon. We gotta get ready.
So Andy's still thumping on his
Yeah.
keyboard here and hasn't found it yet, but
The
we'll
reason
work on it and we'll send out an email to everybody.
Yeah.
Okay? We want to know what the statute says. I feel like Jack Breyer right now. We're pushing 8:30, so let's try to get through this. New business. So Andy, this was all you, but I think that a lot of us had some real questions that I got put on because, it's my high school. So what are you talking about?
So let me, just because where I think a lot of discussion will come, can I do B before A? Is that okay?
Sure.
Just, it was
End
more,
of year awards, non-academic.
so it was more informational. I had a couple of just community folks approach me and say, they noticed that at the award ceremony, this is my first award ceremony, so I was just taking it in, that there was only one non-academic award awarded to a graduating senior. I think it was for entrepreneurial, starting your own business or something like that. And they said, in today's day and age, when a lot of kids aren't going to college, is there any way to increase or to acknowledge those kids? So I said, it's definitely something we can start a conversation around. And so that's more what that is. I didn't want to lose that thought. And so I know, the community is extremely generous with our graduates, and many of those awards are set up as memorials or they come from alumni and stuff of that nature. So it's not anything one of us can do, but it's just something to encourage to see if there's ways to improve it. I mean, I have some thoughts like, I mean, my kids are athletic, and their big deal is signing day. And I've seen, in my travels, there are some schools that celebrate, when a kid isn't necessarily going, like signing the D1, thing commitment, but they're making a commitment to work for CODA in CODA, right? And because they're going right out of work, or they're going to be going to work at, whatever, Bazin Brothers or whatever, and they actually have a signing day, like where we're celebrating those kids who are actually going into different trades and different the workforce. I've seen it with military. I've also seen it with kids who are, they even went on the lineman school or something of that nature, right? So we celebrate all of those things as opposed to just celebrating our academic awards, because we got a lot of really talented kids who maybe college isn't the best avenue, but there's some post-secondary we should be acknowledging those. So that was more, I didn't want to lose it, and I tend to, those conversations I can lose real quick, so.
John's written it down, so we haven't lost it. We got it for next year anyways. I like that. That's a good idea, it's, there's a lot of kids, and that's what I've always talked about on this board is we put so much effort into those kids that are going to college, but, what about those kids that aren't going to go to college, but are going to have a really good life because they found a good job and they're learning a trade and, all those really important things that we kind of forget about because we live on the TV and the phones, so.
It'd be a great way to also promote and celebrate our businesses within our own community that are, supporting our kids, so. So the ECLC, which is the Early Child Learning Center. And so this is a concept that came out of ESSER and an ESSER committee of talking about what would be the biggest impact, how could we really impact education within WNESU for the future. And we talked about it at this board at one time, and we were going down the road, and we've been moving. We have concept approval, which again just means that the AOE has said, yes, this is an appropriate use of ESSER funds. And then they say, basically go out and find out what the real dollar amounts are, and start getting your permits and contact an engineer and stuff like that. So we sent out and done an RFP. We've gotten the RFPs back, 3 bids. But what's kind of coming up and what we were talking about at the ESSER program was if we were to be able to build an early childhood learning center coupled with a superintendent's office or a central office, where could this be built? At one time, 66 Atkins Street was discussed as a possibility. As far as the size for an early childhood learning center, it wasn't appropriate. And so the committee really started talking about, could the high school grounds be a possibility? I know that Mr. Pratt at one time had talked about, at least with me, about looking at potential of some building here on the ground. And so we really wanted to come to this board to have that discussion and to see if we could get at least approval that if we were able to move forward, that we could locate it here on the grounds. One, it would mean that we wouldn't have to go out and purchase land, but also with sewer hookup and electricity hookup and everything, it's all right here. Having it at the high school would provide an opportunity for students to be able to access and do some internships or do some educational programming with it. Coupling a superintendent's office with it would potentially save us $50,000 a year just on lease. That's what we're paying at our current facility. And so we're kind of at this point where we've got these, can't really go into working with an architect to draw plans if we don't know where we're looking at building. So.
Go ahead, Jim.
I have a couple different things. Number one, do you have a place in mind for it, a site?
So what is it called? The golf course? Is that, John, what it's called out here?
There's a golf course.
No, but what, a driving range? Is that
Untitled,
what-
well, FISA uses it for poker.
Okay,
Right over, yeah.
okay.
So at the end of this building.
So
Yes.
that field I know is used for a lot of things. Pee Wee uses it, gym class uses it. I would not personally be in favor of using a field. We have how many acres of woods?
140.
okay, that we could potentially log off and build maybe back by the soccer and field hockey fields. And the other point that I had was, I think that this needs to go before the Buildings and Grounds Committee before it comes to this board. That's just my thinking. Because the site of it for me is the biggest part. I don't have any objections about having it at the high school, but I don't want to take up, I mean, Pee Wee uses that, football uses that, gym uses that area. So if we were to put it somewhere else and clear off some woods, then I would be more for it.
Deb, you got your hand up.
Yes, my hand's up because I have some concerns about the location due to it's not being centrally located. Of course, we have multiple schools involved at the high school and then the WNESU, but the elementary school of Rockingham and the elementaries and the middle school of Rockingham are both centrally located in Bellows Falls, and I would think an early education program should also be centrally located. I hate to bring it back up, but the Cherry Hill location, if we were to purchase, renovate it, or have it renovated before we purchase it, would be an ideal centralized location between both of those schools. I have concerns about building early education out of Westminster. We have enough cries and complaints from people with their kids getting them to school in the early mornings. Now you're talking about younger children who have to be bused. So my thinking is it should be more centrally located between the elementary and the middle school. Thank you.
If I could just respond to, we are not talking about busing little kids. This would be a fee-based program where parents who are already paying to send their kids to for childcare would be continuing to use that. The universal monies that we send to other providers would just be funneled to that. So we're not looking at busing kids. We're not looking at a program that's going to cost any additional funding. Our projected numbers are actually showing that it would probably turn a revenue. That's the other piece. If we want to do a business plan, and some of that would be a factor of location and stuff of that nature.
Jason.
So how many people here are Rockingham voters? Just me, myself, Deb, 1, 2, John. So Jim stated that 61% of the taxes here was paid by Rockingham. So that's mostly us and Rockingham. We'd be flipping this bill for not the shell that's being built from Esser, but the upkeep afterwards. And I for one, do not believe anything is free. At some point, just like we're seeing in today's world, we gave out a bunch of money for COVID and we paid people not to work. And we just printed money like crazy from the government. And we're in a 40-year inflation monstrosity. So I don't believe anything is free. I think it is so hard to earn a dollar and make a dollar as a business person. And it almost seems like a rouge to build a superintendent's office here because we got into a bad deal in Westminster. We're putting a cart before the horse. We got to go to the taxpayers. The taxpayers of Rockingham should have to vote on this. We have to do a business plan, like you said. We have one entrance in this place, one exit. The Route 5 out there is more than 30 miles an hour. So you're gonna have more traffic out there, more people making left-hand turns, more accidents. And I have a list of things that we haven't even fixed first, and then we're gonna build something else that we're gonna mismanage. We have the parking lot, the science room that we're going to adjust. Security, electrical upgrades, PCBs. We failed the lead test last year. You know, my answer would be no. We have so many other things that we have to do. And I'm gonna remind you again, this school was built in 1972. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong. 1970. We had this place was housed for 700 students. It used to have 700 students and now has 300 students. Why don't we look at the footprint of this building and what can we do inside this building? We don't need to build something. We have this huge room. We can do so many different things from a remodel standpoint. If anything, I'd be on board with, once we get out of that middle school debacle that we're in, we build one big, beautiful building here that houses middle school and high school. Population is decreasing. Those are the facts. So thank you for letting me speak, Molly. I'm a no.
Priscilla,
Yeah, I appreciate Jason sharing his thoughts. However, we have talked for years and years and years about putting a superintendent's building up here rather than renting at Cherry Hill. And Cherry Hill is not our property, it's the church's property, and that's probably not an option for them to sell it to us or put something there. They are using all of those buildings that we vacated. The other thing is that at some point, early childhood education is going to be mandated. It's already being discussed at the state level. And when it is mandated, we do not have the current facilities that are appropriate for preschoolers. We are kind of housing them right now at Central School, but the facilities there are not the appropriate size for them. It also means that at Central School, we're having to farm out a lot of our storage stuff because there's not as much storage. We had to give up some of the storage at Central School to use that. We did look at a central place in Bellas Falls. We looked at 66 Atkinson Street, which is pretty small, very small for our footprint as far as, because it has to be back from the street and as far as play space and all of that stuff. Whereas this is a WNESU district-wide facility where we draw from kids from Westminster, kids from Grafton, Athens, from Rockingham, and all of them as a unified district. So it totally is the appropriate place to be able to be putting a preschool type facility. It also provides educational, like Andy said, for our students to look at educating them. When they were going to split up the career centers back 5-6 years ago, our high school was given education and the agricultural programs. Those lasted, we kind of did something for about a year or 2 years. It would be good if we could go into that because that splits up the career center approach and doesn't send them all to Springfield and all to Brattleboro. It gives each school a type of program. There was hospitality at one, there was, firefighters, there were all kinds of different programs, but that allows us to also have some here, and that would build our education. We do have quite a lot of students coming in and starting, and as we build and provide these kinds of facilities for people, they will be more interested in our community. They will want to come here. We will have the child care that the reason we gave Katie Emond a year's leave was she was saying she didn't have any childcare for her child. And so this would provide the opportunity for our staff and for people in the community. Thanks for listening.
June.
So this wouldn't only be a preschool. You would do a birth to whatever, and then they would graduate into
Birth through 5
preschool.
or-
And-
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
And a lot of it would be paid, I
Right,
mean, some kids will qualify for something probably, but, it's a safe place with an educational background to bring, newborns to.
That would help us retain our staff.
That's right. Cheryl?
It's okay, I actually would like to weigh in on this
Absolutely.
one for a minute. I have, along with Priscilla and others, served on the ESSER committee for the last more than a year. And this proposal has certainly been considered, and I'm on the committee to look at the Early Childhood Learning Center. And so with that, and with the request for proposals that was just sent out and sent to a variety of different architectural and design firms, I had a chance as a member of that committee to look at the 3 proposals that were submitted today. And a part of what I'm reading in them is something that makes sense to me, and that's to do even more of the feasibility analysis. And if we could look to see if the high school land might be one. I happen to agree with you, Jim. I don't want to take up a field, but if there's all this land here, there's a great potential opportunity. But we've also had people come to us and talk about maybe other land in Bellows Falls for some of the reasons that Deb was just mentioning. I think we're still in a place to gather more information and to try to figure out what the pros and cons of various locations might be. So I think I would ask the high school board to consider the possibility of this being one of the sites, but let's have the committee people dive in and get even more information about possible locations.
Deb's got her hand and I'll get you, David.
I'll yield to
Deb?
Deb.
Deb, right?
No, I don't. I just forgot to take it down.
Wondering now.
David.
Okay, I don't doubt the need for early education in this area. It would probably have a very large impact on Mr. Broadley's AEP program in a few years if we were to do it. But I do have, some general concerns about it because I think we really do need to have a hard look at the cost benefit analysis.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to make a comment here. And that is that I think that it's great for Bellows Falls, but it's pretty exclusionary if you're out in Athens or Grafton. And we appear to have a population, correct me if I'm wrong, Cheryl, that there's a lot of young kids coming out of that area because it's affordable housing. If we are going to be equitable, and I think we need to find something that's roughly in the middle. And I would say roughly in the middle is Saxon's River. Saxon's River has what a lot of people at this table still think of as old girls Kernhattan, which I believe now is referred to as the Warner Center. And if you're going to go out prospecting, I think you need to be prospecting up there because there's an awful lot of space at the Warner Center. And it has been used for educational purposes because when we were kicking 40 kids out of this building to Kindle Farms for out-of-district placement, an awful lot of them ended up at the Warner Center in programs up there. So I'm going to suggest that, great idea. Yeah, let's see what the money looks like, to Jason Terry's point. And I totally agree with him. I think we need to know what kind of legacy costs we're going to potentially saddle the community with. But more to the point, I think if we're going to have it, then we sort of have a moral and possibly even a legal obligation to provide access, which would be very, very difficult to provide to the trailer parks out in Athens if it's here. And when I say legal, that is because if I were an Athens parent with any clout whatsoever, it would really be an issue for me.
Anything else, Andy?
No, just want to make sure we brought it up and started the discussion. As Cheryl said, there are some, I hadn't heard about the Warren Center, so.
I think so I know the gentleman that owns that. I think he has it full right now, but I mean,
It's mostly
pretty,
apartments now.
yeah, and he's even, I think, working on getting the gym rented, so I think it's pretty full. I've done a lot of work out there, but
I mean, I can speak to, when the questions come up of, why not renovate a building and why not utilize the footprint we have. In my travels, I've been through a few building projects. In one town, we were looking at building a brand new high school. I want to say it was about $14 million for a brand new high school.
Cheap.
This was a few years ago.
Not in today's.
And the first school's about the same size as Bellows Falls, a couple more students. The voters voted it down by 34 votes. So a few years later, they were able to get past the renovation project because the old high school needed to be renovated. So they got 6 classrooms, a football field, and a track for $18 million. Because all the work had to go into renovating and reinforcing all the old walls when they did it. I was in Nashua when they built the 2 high schools in Nashua. They built the brand new high school. I'm going to throw out a number. I have no idea. It was 20 years ago. But let's say they built the new high school, the North High School, for $20 million. They renovated the old high school, kept the same outside walls and everything. It was double the price. So from my perspective, and also I was in Keene when Keene looked to build their new middle school. They were going to renovate the old high school, which was the new middle school, or the older middle school. So it was originally the high school, then it became the middle school. And so they were either going to renovate that building or build a new building. They ended up building a new building for a lot cheaper than it was to renovate the old building, because you get into asbestos and blah, 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 blahs and all that stuff. So when you go into a construction project, it tends to be cheaper to build new as opposed to renovating. So that's the reason why I think I steered this committee to look at a new building project as opposed to a renovation project, because the cost just would be more feasible to get what out of it. So
So I will second that.
Yeah.
So,
I was just.
and I'm as passionate about thinking that this is, everybody said their chance to, I think this is a great idea. I really do. I'm way beyond ever worrying about having to raise a little kid, but wasn't so long ago, but I remember how hard it was to find a good place, a place where you felt comfortable leaving your child. I was working 50 hours a week. I needed to know that she was in a safe space. I wasn't afraid to pay the money to have her in a safe space, but it was really important. And there were a few times where either my husband or I took a couple days off from our job, even though we didn't want to, because we felt uncomfortable leaving our child in that space. So we had to dig and dig and dig to find something else. And yeah, that was 20 years ago, but I can't imagine that it's any better now. And I am a supporter of getting it combined with an SU office, because ever since I've gotten involved in the school system, that is the biggest hiccup we talk about, is where our SU office is. It's never had a home. And to take the Cherry Hill building, for example, and remodel that, you can't do it. You can do it, but you might as well bulldoze it down and start over, because there's so many bad things in that building that it would be a horror show. So I don't agree with taking an athletic field, but I think that there's plenty of land here. I showed up here at 5:40 tonight, and I look like probably this old person just driving around Bellows Falls High School, and probably somebody's going to report me pretty soon because I was creeping. But I drove very slowly all around the grounds and tried to think, where could we do this where it made sense, where there was a place for parking, where we weren't taking parking spaces from, this parking lot is full when you show up here in the middle of the day on a school day. And, I went up by the football field, and, I just kind of tried to have an open mind of what could we do that would make sense for most people. And, I don't have that answer. I just wanted to look for myself. There's a lot of land here. There's, I've walked the trails, there's some places where we could probably do something. I'm not gonna stamp my feet if it doesn't happen, but I'll tell you that I'm a supporter of at least doing our homework and really looking into what it means to do this. Because we are paying a crap load of money into a building that isn't ours. And I realize we can't own as an SU, but we can own as a school district.
Correct.
And so it makes sense to me, and it makes a lot of sense to, if we're not looking at our future, our kids, and we complain all the time, the whole world just gets so negative about our area and what our area how our area attracts our kids coming home from college. Are they gonna stay here or are they gonna leave? As a mother, I hope that they're pretty close, but I also know that, what is here to attract kids to come back home. And, all those things are wicked important to me. And, I don't have an agenda to be a school board member other than our kids are the most important part of what we're doing here for involving the school system. So if we can start helping them when they're little kids to get them up to high school and then have a much better chance to succeed, because the first 5 years of their life, they had some direction and they had some, good meals, and they had, that's the kind of stuff that's important to me. So I get that we're not going to approve the site tonight, but I had to have my 2 cents, so I'm done. Thank you. June.
I think a site is the first thing you have to nail down, because that's going to affect your cost. If you have to log off a bunch of trees, that's going to add to the engineer and the architect, they're gonna need to know where the drainage is gonna be, where the septic is gonna be, all that stuff. So first thing you need to do is nail down the location.
Now you know why I pointed out here, it's flat ground, it's open, right?
Deb, you got your hand up.
Yeah, this time it's for real. Okay, so eliminate taking over something like Cherry Hill, but let's go back to what Jason said. Neither the high school nor the high school, neither the high school nor the middle school are full. They're at half capacity, not the elementary school. We don't need to get to that, but both of those schools are not a capacity. So that right there to me means we want to build another building when we have space in 2 other buildings that we could utilize. And that's one. So there's a significant dollar value difference, I would say. And the second part is the building you're sitting in today, every single person who was there in 1970 is now a senior citizen. Just saying. Every one of them. If they turned 18 in 1970, they're now what? 70? Is that correct? My math? So,
No,
68, but
yeah, well, it's 22. So we're looking at senior citizens were in that building, and I'd like to think better of the building, but the middle school has been through a renovation. What was that, 10 years ago now? So that should be good. Their systems should be in working order. However, I have to say the high school, I hate to think that it was built as poorly as the public safety building, which is built around the same time in Bellows Falls, because that was a POS and the building has a lot of needs. But we have a half capacity building that no one wants to consider filling, and a half capacity, two of the same. And we should strongly consider that. And the other thing that Jason said is Rockingham pays 61% of the taxes. That should be consideration in waiting on who decides what gets built. And that's the last thing I have to say about it. Okay.
Okay, we're not doing anything tonight on this, right?
No.
Okay. So can we move on to ratification of support staff CBA, please?
I need to, my wife's a parent at a different school, do I need to excuse myself?
I mean, for
And
both.
are we,
Yeah.
we
Yeah, I'm
need to
not
do that in
comments.
exec session anyway, right?
Why? We have to.
Well, it should be done in exec session.
Uh,
That's the way
then
it's
why?
been being done
Why does that-
until it's fully ratified and
I will just not vote. If you want me to leave, I'll leave.
No, you don't have to leave, you just,
no, until
I don't. David, can you help me? Does this have to be in executive session?
Well, I believe that the proposed CBA is already in the public domain. And I'm saying that because it's been ratified by, Union Elementary, no?
No, only Rockingham.
Rockingham,
And the
Rockingham is
WNSU.
ratified, it's a public document.
You're right, the WNSU.
Yeah, because we did it at
UNSU is
the WNSU.
Ratified, it's a public document. There are no secrets anymore regarding the proposed CBA for support staff.
And these aren't individual contracts. They're I mean, they're not gonna state that
So-
Lisa's at step
Right.
14 on a master's or whatever. It's just a general.
Why didn't we get you to be a board member a long time ago?
I didn't have a weak moment a long time ago.
Molly, what is private would be any discussion that could impact our, and we don't ratify. If we don't ratify, it would have to go back and have more discussions. And then it does impact the further negotiations or the further possibilities of what might have to happen. That's why it should be done in executive session.
Has the association ratified?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
So if the association is ratified, then we can do it in public session. Let's do it.
I was just going to offer a point of information that in this group of the people who negotiated representing the boards, you have 3 members of that negotiation team for the board sitting here. That would be June Streeter and Priscilla Lambert and Deb Wright. They were 3 of the 5 of the board member negotiation team. And the process, the support staff, the lead negotiator for them was Kate Kane. We went through a lot of, I'm the designee, the spokesperson for the board negotiating committee. That's the only reason I'm sitting here tonight. And the other person, the other of the 5 members is Jack Breyer. To just briefly describe, we went through a lot of back and forth with this and came up with, I think, a resolution that everyone involved feels good about. And it's not where we started. It's not where they started. It's not where we started. But if you have a motion to consider on the floor, there may not be need for any discussion, nor any need to go into executive session.
So we do not have a motion on the floor yet, but I'd like to have a motion to ratify the support staff CBA.
I'll make that motion.
And I'll second it.
Would you like to speak to it?
Yeah, I think that both parties did a lot of hard work. I think that the nuts and bolts, the salary schedule will put us in a place that will allow us to be competitive with surrounding areas. We're not going to be the highest, but it'll allow us to draw competitively. We were able to work through an opportunity to look at what we would consider a para 2, which would be a paraprofessional who maybe has a higher degree, has an associate's degree or higher, which would allow them to get a higher compensation for being on that, for having that piece. Many of our early child care paraprofessionals, I'm sorry, I lost my words there, but they have to have a certain level of number of units and whatnot. So we try to align it with that so that, again, because they have to go to school more than a regular paraprofessional. But we do have a few paraprofessionals who have master's degrees and have just chosen that that's the profession they want to follow. But then also the
the SLPAs, which is the speech language pathologist assistants, and the CODAs, which is the certified occupational therapy assistants, voted to join the union. And so they had to be inserted into this negotiation. And so there was a lot of conversation around that, but it will bring their salaries to a competitive wage. We've been fortunate that we've been able to have these folks in our district for quite a while, but they have regionally, but also within the greater region and then nationally have been underpaid. And so it would bring them up to us.
Okay, can we vote on it? Deb,
Aye.
Priscilla,
Aye.
Jason,
Abstain.
Margot.
Yes.
June,
Yes.
David,
Yes.
Brenda,
Yes.
Tanya,
She's not still on.
you gone.
Oh.
Motion passes. We do not have it on our agenda, but the next meeting is August 22nd at 6:30. A Building and Grounds Committee meeting will be at 5 o'clock that same night. We'll have a walkthrough. No, that was late.
Yeah.
Special for you, Andy. And we are down to director's comments. Deb.
I hope that everyone is doing what they can to stay cool, and also helping those who have difficulties breathing stay inside by helping them do errands and getting the stuff for them so that they can stay breathing. So I guess that's it. Just everyone's trying to chill off. It's still in the 80s and very breathless. So take care.
Priscilla.
I appreciate all the careful consideration that the board had to do tonight. And I would just encourage everybody to do at least one little small act of kindness each day, because it goes a long way.
Jason.
Well, I'd like to say that I really like how you run your meeting. I happened to watch 3 minutes of the board meeting the other night, and I had to leave the room while my wife continued to watch. But it seemed to be a horror show, and I think we got a lot of things done tonight, and a lot of tough conversations back and forth. You're not always going to hear something you like, but we all remain calm and controlled. And as a dad, I'm always very leery of free gifts, and I don't take handouts. I want to impress on my kids that you're going to work and earn everything you get. So I'm very leery about ESSER. It's a big number for me. 20-something million is a big number. And at some point, someone's got to pay for that. That's just, it makes me a little nervous. I don't want to put the cart before the horse. I'd like to, I don't mind doing things. I think that's progress. And you have to look 60 years down the road where we're going to be 60 years from now. When building is the right thing, or remodeling this building is the right thing. I don't even know when we last remodeled this place, but I'm telling you, there's room here. But a lot of things we got to look at. So I'll just leave it at that. And again, I want to thank you for that. And earn every dollar you can. And if any kids are out there listening, work hard. Life's not easy. Thanks.
Thank you. Margot.
I didn't get to say this earlier, but when we were talking about awards nights and recognizing students just beyond the academics, I mean, one thing I do notice in the awards ceremony, which I do think is fabulous, is there is a lot of emphasis on community service and participation in the community, and those students are recognized. We don't tend to do the trades here at this school, and recognizing that. But the students that do have the opportunity to go to the tech centers there is wonderful award ceremonies at the tech centers related to the trades. But I don't think that that's often reflected back to the home schools. You know, I think that there's been a lot of very strong successes of Bellows Falls students, probably out of both tech centers. I'm mostly familiar with where my kids have gone. But, you know, there's a lot of really amazing work that students from here have done. Yeah, so maybe part of recognizing students in the trade, you know, is maybe some acknowledgement back at the home schools of recognition that's happening there. Anyway, just wanted to share that.
June,
I just want to say that it's hard enough to get people to be on boards. It just seems like there's a very few people that are doing anything, and that we all need to step up and help out. And between that and the terrible reporting done by the Brownville Reformer, it's almost impossible to get anybody to be on a board and in the public eye. So we just need to be more mindful of that and make sure that, you know, step up if somebody needs help, and, you know, do a little research on your own to bring to the meeting so that it's a more productive meeting. And that's all.
Cheryl,
I don't need to say anything. Thank you.
David,
Well, I feel a little bit like that warden in that prison movie with Paul Newman called Cool Hand Luke. I feel like in some respects, we still have a failure to communicate at this table. Let me go back to the last meeting. And I quoted Andrea Carlson's remarks very briefly from April 11th, when she said, this is a direct quote, "I have worked here for 20 years, and during that time, it's been reported to me each year that racial incidents happen regularly at BFUHS." Following that up in April and May, and in June, and also I'm not sure whether my last request went out at the end of June or beginning of July, but I have said, please tell us what steps have been taken here to address the allegations of inappropriate behavior toward minority members of the BFUHS community. If these incidents are accurately reported by our guidance counselor, what have we been doing about it for 20 years? That's a question. If this is not accurate reporting, then how have we reconciled that fact with the allegations which have been made? That's what I have been asking for 4 months, 3 months. And I really, really hope that it finally makes it onto a high school agenda for discussion. The agenda comes out in August and it's not there, then I will be seeking an adjustment to the agenda so that we discuss it. I think that we've booted this ball around long enough, and now we really need to, you know, have some closure around it. That's my remarks. Thank you.
thank you. Brenda,
No, I think that was.
make a motion to adjourn.
We'll make that.
I'll second.
We are adjourned at 9:06.